It's a great morning. Say good morning, everybody. And now you were supposed to say great morning. This was a very simple task that I gave you. We failed it. We're going to move on. All right. My name is Brendan Reichs, and I'm the author of the Project Nemesis series, which consists of Nemesis, Genesis, and its finale, Chrysalis, which releases March 5th, 2019. And I'm also co-author of a new middle grade series called The Dark Deep with Ali Condi, the great Ali Condi, I should say, which releases October 2nd. That's all I'm going to say about myself during this panel, so if you want to hear more about me, and I know you do, come see me on Sunday for the We Read YA panel at 1 p.m. All right? But that's enough about me, because we have an amazing panel lined up for you right now titled, It Didn't Look That Way in My Head, which is kind of creepy if you think about it. And here's how it's going to work. I'm going to briefly introduce all of our panelists, and then I'm going to have them all tell you a little bit about each of their current works. Then I'll ask some hopefully not terrible questions. The audience will have a chance to ask questions at the end, and then we're going to do a quick lightning round. I always do a lightning round, so you're not prepared for that yet, but you'll be fine. So there will be a signing directly to follow this panel at 12:30 in Sales Pavilion, row 9. Now, this panel is generally about how works of fiction get translated into other forms of media and how we feel about that as authors. And we're hoping to get a little deeper into the subject than it sucked and they ruined it. But first, we're going to meet our panelists, and I will try and get you guys in the correct order, but if I don't, just smile and pretend you're that person. All right. He's a #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Martian, which was a quiet little novel that had an art house film release a few years ago. You may have heard of it. He's gone on to avoid a sophomore slump and produce another powerhouse science fiction novel titled Artemis. He's also a former software engineer and self-proclaimed space nerd who apparently mixes a mean martini. That's his own words there. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Weir. Now, she's a New York Times bestselling author of the All Souls trilogy, which consists of A Discovery of Witches, Shadow of Night, and The Book of Life. Deborah will be releasing another book set in the same universe entitled Times Convert later this fall. And in her spare time, she teaches as a professor of history at UCLA and considers herself a wine enthusiast. USC, no, University of California at Los Angeles.
Oh, USC.
Well, from now on, she teaches at UCLA.
That is the worst mistake you could have made.
Really.
You could have literally said she taught at the University of Pyongyang, and that would have been better.
Can we blame the internet for things? I don't know. She also considers herself a wine enthusiast, so we have 2 boozers on the panel so far out of 2. Ladies and gentlemen, Deborah Harkness. Next is a New York Times bestselling author of the 100 series, which consists of The 100, Day 21, Homecoming, and Rebellion, and was made into a hit TV show on the CW, currently in its 5th season. Do I have that right?
Wow.
And Kass has a new book coming out in October entitled Light Years. She's going to talk about that one today. Ladies and gentlemen, Kass Morgan. She's the renowned author of The Tree Museum, oh man, I have trouble pronouncing this, the Lairdbalor? Lairdbalor, I nailed it. And the forthcoming Hag, which releases October 2nd, which by the title alone sounds absolutely amazing. Kathleen is a high school English teacher and adjunct professor at Santa Monica College. Please tell me I got that right.
You got it.
Okay, good. So far so good. And is an avid photographer as well as a cat possessor. How many?
You know, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Kathleen Kaufman. And last but certainly not least, the award-winning author of Brown Girl in the Ring, which won the Warner Aspect First Novel Contest. She's written and published 9 books of fiction since, as well as a number of short stories, racking up literary awards in the process. Nalo is a professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside. Right?
Yeah.
I don't trust anything. I don't trust anything at this point. And so we are chock full of academics up here as well as our alcoholics. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and likes to sew and craft objects. Ladies and gentlemen, Nalo Hopkinson. All right, in terms of questions, we're going to go down the line exactly 1 time during this panel, and after that I want everybody to jump in when they have an answer. But I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your current project and what brought you to Comic-Con this time around. Nalo, would you like to start?
Yes, I have the delight of writing one of the new novels in the reboot of the Sandman series. And Neil's created a new house in the Dreaming, run by Elzuli, the West African and Afro-Caribbean one diasporic goddess of love. So that's what I'm doing. And I keep having just moments of going,
my upcoming work, Hag, is out on October 2nd. It's the story of a long line of Scottish witches. It's based very much on my mother's very extraordinary life story. She's thrilled.
And you named it Hag.
Yeah.
Clarify that.
To me again one day. It's all good. No, she's had an absolutely extraordinary life, and so it's based on a lot of the stories she's told me about herself and our family history, and I'm really excited. It's coming out October 2nd, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. I can't believe I'm on a panel with someone who refers to Neil Gaiman as Neil. That is so cool. I have like third degree. I'm starstruck. So I'm the author of the 100 series, which is about teens who are sent to resettle Earth in the future after Earth has been rendered uninhabitable by nuclear winter and war, as happens in young adult literature. And my new series, Light Years, is about teens making similarly bad life choices in space. But this one is set in a completely different universe. Earth is not involved, but there are aliens. And when they are not saving their solar system from alien attack, they still find time to make out. Because really, if you had a zero gravity room at your school, you would do that too.
It's an all-ages show.
Yes, making out in space. Round of applause. Thank you.
All right. Well, I've got a new novel in the All Souls world coming out on September the 18th, and it's called Time's Convert, and it tries to answer the question, what does it really take to become a vampire? And so it is a story.
I think I know this one.
A Martian, apparently. It is exploring, it's sort of three interwoven narratives. One of them focuses on Diana and Matthew and the children, for those of you who are readers of the All Souls trilogy, about a year after the events of the Book of Life, at a time when Phoebe Taylor, also from the trilogy, is undergoing her transformation as a vampire. So we follow Phoebe's transformation almost day by day as she becomes a vampire over the course of the novel. And then the third storyline is that this brings back lots of memories for her fiancé, Marcus Whitmore. So we get to see his transformation from the fields of Western Massachusetts as a farmer growing up at the beginning of the American Revolution, through the early years of the Revolution, the French Revolution, the Enlightenment, and on into the early years of the Republic. So it's got three kind of all woven together, and hopefully, I'm a teacher, I talk with my hands. So other teachers on this panel talk with their hands. Yes. See. Okay, enough said. So that's what I'm here for. Over to you.
Well, hi. So I'm here to plug Artemis, and I didn't realize that everybody's going to bring a book and put it in front of them, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. That,
Oh, thank you.
oh, hey!
Oh, dude.
Don't want that back.
Saved. This is mine now. Yes.
$8.
Artemis is my latest book. Everybody knows about The Martian. This is different, but still in the hard sci-fi realm that I like to inhabit. I'm not sure if that was a Freudian slip or what. Inhabit. It takes place in humanity's first city that's not on Earth. It's a city on the moon named Artemis. It's got a population of about 2,000 people. It's 40 kilometers away from the Apollo 11 landing site. Their primary industry is tourism. It takes place, it takes place in the future. My main conceit is that the price to low Earth orbit has been driven down by competition in the commercial space industry, and it's been driven down far enough that middle-class people can afford to go to space. So lunar vacations are actually within the reach of people. They're hella expensive, but they're not impossible. And the main character is a woman named Jasmine Bashara. Everyone calls her Jazz. And she is a small-time criminal. She smuggles contraband items into the city, mostly tobacco, because flammable items are forbidden in this, pressurized, contained, city. Mostly she smuggles tobacco, and she gets an opportunity to do like some industrial sabotage when she's hired by a business magnate in Artemis to sabotage his competition, and it's one of those one big scores that'll set her up for life. And of course, everything goes according to the plan, and there are no complications at all. Yeah, no, everything goes wrong. She gets in horribly over her head, and kind of that's the story. Oh, and Fox bought the film rights. Hopefully they make a movie, but you never really know. Although I tried to make it part of the contract that they would have someone be the right, general, don't have to actually be Middle Eastern, but someone whose skin color is at least appropriate, like maybe a Bollywood actress or South American or Native American or somebody who just not white, Fox wouldn't go for that. They wouldn't let me put that in the contract, but the directors they've hired have made it clear that they're absolutely going to do that. So don't expect whitewashing.
All right, so 1 point for the directors and 0 points for Fox. So this panel is nominally about adaptations of written works of fiction into different forms of media. And some of you have gone through this, some of you are in the process right now, and then some of you are writing original stuff for adaptation to other media. I'd like you to just talk a little bit about generally what your experience has been like. Would you consider it generally a favorable experience, or has it been unfavorable? And anyone jump in when you want to.
I guess I'll start. It was incredibly favorable for me. I mean, it was all positive. The Martian film did really well. I feel like it was a really good adaptation. I'm very happy with how they portrayed the book. Of course, they had to take a bunch of stuff out because otherwise it'd be a 5-hour movie. But the stuff that they took out is the stuff that I would have taken out if it had been up to me, which it wasn't. When you're the writer of a book and you've sold the film rights, your only job is to cash the check. But I feel like I did it well, cashing the check. But I'm extremely happy with The Martian, as you can imagine, and it made a huge amount of money, so everybody at the studio is happy with it. So for me, it was just a very, very positive experience all the way through. However, I do know that it's anomalous because, everyone involved with the production was telling me, by the way, it never goes this smoothly. By the way, things never go this well. By the way, you're getting a once, never, ever, ever is this ever going to happen again for you. So
your whole life is peaked. Yeah, everything downhill for you.
Yeah, it's all downhill. No, it is definitely all downhill from here. So it was sort of a charmed project from the get-go, and I know I was very, very lucky.
I guess I'll jump in because I know how you feel about people going all the way down. I see you visibly tense when that happens. Yes. So I also had a really great experience. So if you're here for gossip, I'm sorry, but I'll be at the bar later, a little looser. But I'd say the same thing. So I had an incredible experience writing The 100, which was adapted for TV on the CW. In my first book, most of the main characters are straight and are in straight romances. And the show reimagined the characters, and they made one of the main characters queer, and she had a really incredible storyline where she fell in love with another girl, and it was one of the first representations of bi-teen sexuality on network television, and I just thought that was extraordinary. I just love seeing my characters reimagined that way. I love seeing my universe more diverse and more, an accurate representation of my readers and the audience for the TV. So it's caused a little bit of drama in the fandom, which we can get into at another time, maybe when I have a cocktail in hand. But
we can set that up. Can someone get a cocktail in here?
It's been a sort of overwhelmingly wonderful experience.
Exactly. I recently had my first novel was used as the inspiration for a film by a director named Sharon Lewis, who, like me, is both Canadian and Caribbean, and who had wanted to make my first novel, Brown Girl in the Ring, into a film from the time it was first published. At that point, she wanted to act in it. But she had the acting training, but she didn't have the directing training, at least not in film. So she went ahead and got it. She became a director, she put projects out. Almost 18 years later, she was like, yes, so now I'm ready to make this, can I talk to your agent? And the wonderful thing about going through that process is it's a very Canadian. It's set in Toronto, which is where I've been from for the past 35 years, and it's a very Canadian production. So she's hired a lot of actors and personalities who are black people from Canada, so I know a lot of them. And when she was casting, she phoned me up at one point and said, "You're never going to guess who I casted for Mommy," who is the sort of tough, flea-bitten grandmother of the literally grandmother, and who's the main character. I said, "Okay, tell me." She said, "Shukura Saida." Shukura Saida epitomizes Foxy. She is a tall, statuesque, gorgeous, gorgeous blues singer. And the last thing you would think of when you see her is a little old grandmother. And I just sort of went silent, and Sharon said, no, just you wait. So I saw the film finally, and saw it when it aired in Toronto for the first time, and Shukura nailed it. She completely reinterpreted the character, but it felt so right that I was fine with it. Sharon did a really good job of casting.
Since we're just jumping in as per your instructions, I had a similar experience when I found out they cast Jessica Chastain as Commander Lewis. In my mind, Commander Lewis looked a lot like Jane Lynch. Like, she was, no, seriously, she's like, I imagined a woman in her late 50s or early 60s. She had a full naval career and then worked her way up through NASA to be the commander of a Mars mission. She's not going to be young, right? And I also imagined her as being like tough and military and like, you know, like that. And then we have this incredibly beautiful Jessica Chastain cast as the commander, and I'm like, is that going to work? Is that going to be plausible? And yeah, she nailed it, you know. So I had a very similar experience.
Yeah.
The process for me has been long, and it's been a real challenge and a real learning experience in all kinds of ways. So as an educator, I value learning experiences, but I was also reminded so many times during the process of just how different it is when this is not your field of I am not a filmmaker. I didn't train to be a filmmaker, nor did I train to be a makeup artist, a set designer, a producer, or any of these other things. I am a historian, and I have very late in life started writing fiction. And so I was a student again, and it was both exciting and terrifying because, you know, I'm really used to being the one that everybody turns around to and says, okay, so what do we do? I'm used to being the expert. And I was totally not the expert. And that was a really wonderful, humbling experience. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that every single day I woke up with sunshine and rainbows in my heart to embrace the film and television adaptation.
Here we go.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go there because, but I don't think anybody in this room wakes up every single day and it's like, yay, I get to get up on Monday and go to work, you know? I mean, some days you feel that way, but a lot of days you don't feel that way. And so it's been a real process of learning that rhythm. I will say that the best moments of the process were the ones that were the most highly collaborative. And I don't know if that rings true with others on the panel. The moments where you were at the sort of like at the tea station and you were having a casual conversation with the props person who you discovered was the person who did the genius bookshelf in, the set that you just left, that you were like, who did that bookshelf? That is the most wonderful set design I've ever seen. I mean, I have pictures on my phone of single shelves on books. And I was like, oh yeah, that was my shelf. And it was these moments of understanding just how collaborative and compartmentalized the process was and how many people were slogging their guts out to make this adaptation. Those were the really special moments for me where I was caught up in that kind of, Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, kind of like, let's put on a show kind of moment. And it all seemed like we could do
Timely
anything.
References.
Huh?
Timely references.
Yeah, and it was just sort of like, oh my God. Those were moments that made all the hard, struggle, challenging, sloggy moments really worth it for me. So, so that's sort of where I am, having, wrapped in February. So it's still pretty fresh.
That sort of leads into my next question. When you guys are
Hey. Cat lady didn't talk.
Well, she didn't look like she wanted to, so I was going to open with her, Andy. Did you want to jump in on that one?
Well, to be honest, I'm at the very beginning baby stages of the process. Lairdbalor the film options were signed in May, finally, after a very long process. They started talking about it in September, and I swear every day since September, it was a month before the book came out, and I was like, yeah, okay, there's a unicorn in the closet over there too, right? Somebody wants to make a movie out of it? You guys are hilarious. But yeah, every day since September, it was, the deal's gonna be here on Monday. It's gonna be Monday, it's gonna be Monday. And I realized really quickly that Hollywood doesn't really work at the speed of my enthusiasm.
Can we have that on a T-shirt? I would really like that on a T-shirt.
So every, we just had this running joke. It was like, yeah, Monday's coming along, right? But it finally signed in May, and then I could finally kind of talk about it in June. And so we're really at the beginning stages of it all. There's a director signed with it, Nicholas Verso, who's an Australian. He's brilliant. He's The Boys in the Trees, which came out of Australia. It's on Netflix right now. It's amazing. And a bunch of other really incredible things that he's done. And I really trust his vision of it. So I'm really happy with what he's had to, with his thoughts on it and his belief in the structure of the book and the message of it. And so, yeah, I'm in the beginning baby stages, though. So
it's a lot of unicorn enthusiasm on the panel for their adaptations. That's probably why they got Comic-Con invite.
Wait, was it a Monday, though, when you finally got the confirmation?
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Never the Monday.
Yeah.
It's never Monday. That's the thing.
Yeah. And then after, it was funny because people I worked with, after I finally was able to announce it, they were all like, whoa, my God. And by that point, I was like, yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
The correct answer to that question was no. Everyone in Hollywood lies all the time about everything, no matter what they're saying. You can sell something 6 times at breakfast, and then you get an email about a week later saying, pass. But R.L. Stein has a good quote. He said there was a book in the 60s talking about the film industry that the title of it was literally, Hello, He Lied. I always thought, I was like, I understand you now. Yeah. But so when you guys are creating your works, like, is adapting to another form media, be it film or TV, is that something you're actively thinking about when you're planning your books or your screen? I mean, obviously your screenplays, but your works. Is that something like you're looking to do, or is it just sort of a happy accident, or it doesn't enter your thought process at all?
Mine's really brief. No, I don't think about it at all.
Mine's also brief. No, but a little less brief. I'll expand a bit. I knew that after The Martian that probably, at the very least, the film rights for my next book were going to be just bought regardless of what it was. I mean, let's be honest. I could have wiped my ass and made copies, and that would have been a bestseller after The Martian, right? So
I got an offer
I have no idea if Artemis is a good book, but I can tell you it sold really well. Yeah, you know what they say. Give a man a book, you entertain him for a night. Teach a man to write, you give him crippling self-doubt for life, right? So, but I actually put effort into, okay, don't go out of your way to try to make something cinematic. Tell the story. You are a writer. Your job is to write a book. It's other people's jobs to make that book into a movie if they want to, but I try. And it's also a good way to keep sane, because if you get roped too deep into the Hollywood universe, it just brings misery. So I try to just remind myself, I'm a novelist. Every now and then I visit Hollywood, kind of like you might visit a zoo, but I'm a novelist. I'm on the outside of the cages.
Yeah, I never thought of it until I'd published my first novel and realized when I was doing class visits, that kind of thing, a lot of the younger people were all saying, so when's the movie coming out? And that's when it began to occur to me just how visually oriented we are. But I can't write a book thinking it's going to be a movie. First of all, what I do is because it's so Caribbean, because it's so black, because it's so queer, so Canadian, it's always going to be a niche, I think. But also, a book is not a film. You don't write them the same way, or it won't work. Mm-hmm. So if and when I get those offers, it is a happy accident, and I'm very glad for it. But like you, I do what I do.
I feel like you need a word for Canadian Caribbean. I think you need, like, Caradian or Cannabian?
I like Cannabian, yes.
I tend to think very visually while I'm writing, so I think I had envisioned a lot of things that could be a movie while I was writing both Lairdbalor and Hag, but the idea that it would ever be a movie was, again, like Unicorn in the Closet. I couldn't possibly have conceived of that. But I do tend to think very visually, so that'll be, let's come back to this 1 year, a couple of years from now and see exactly where,
Well, wasn't it cool that day when you opened up the closet and there actually was a unicorn there, right?
And it was a Monday.
Yeah, it's a deal.
I can't believe they actually managed to make a TV show for my book, because I'm the least visual writer I know. When I have to write a battle scene, it takes me weeks to work up to it because I have a lot of anxiety. And then it got so dire, I made my friends sit in a room with me to block out the action scene. I was like, all right, you're in love with him and you've got to get there before the gun goes off. And it was like this weird exercise. It was like Kafka-esque, but also people got a little insulted when I signed who was in love with whom, and then we had to unpack the implications, gender norms. So next time I'm just going to use Legos, which is a long way of saying, I'm sorry if characters' hair colors change from scene to scene.
Outrageous.
I make copy editors' life really hard, and I'm really grateful to them. But that's what's so cool about that moment where you see, you go to the set and you realize someone has spent 3 weeks on something I couldn't be bothered to describe, but the expertise is
I know,
staggering.
and they want to know, would they use a blue pencil or would red be better? And you're thinking, I don't know.
And I have failed them.
I know, and could you look at this? And you're thinking, what is this? And is it important? And I don't remember that part. And they're like, no, it's going to be on the back of the shelf here. And I'm thinking, we don't even see that in the shot. And they're obsessing. And so that's where it is, that kind of, oh my God, just open. It's like the unicorn leads you into this
Yeah, and
crazy place.
it's just so scary and flattering when people take your lies so seriously. That is what this panel is. We made stuff up, and then people have to spend 4 years of their life making it real.
Oh, that's really all a writer is a professional liar. If you write fiction, that's all we do.
Yep.
When I was so I had nothing to do with the filming of The Martian. I didn't even go to the set. They invited me, but it was in Budapest, and that was really far away. Although the premiere was in Toronto, so I was in your neighborhood, and at Toronto Film at TIFF, and so I got to hobnob amongst the elites. And hey, Matt, but. I did also later write a pilot attempt for a TV show that was going to be called Mission Control, and it was going to take place at Mission Control, and the main characters were all the flight controllers. CBS picked it up for a pilot. We shot the pilot, and then CBS decided not to pick it up for series. Welcome to Hollywood. But it was interesting because I had some of the experiences you're talking about where, I made a script for it. We'd gone through a bunch of writing iterations, and now they're shooting it. And, the set people would come and ask me these questions like, what should be like this, or, kind of that red or blue pencil. And the answer that I finally started to come up with is, what's easier for you? And that simultaneously kind of devolved the responsibility away from me and also made me popular.
You're literally holding a red pencil. Let's go with that one. We can take a few questions, so if people want to line up at the microphone right there in the middle. We won't be able to take more than a couple, but we can get that process started now. What was the most difficult change or implemented or requested in your adaptation that you had to deal with? What did they ask when you were looking at the work that you were most ooh, I don't want to do that?
Well, nobody's jumping in, so I'll say just a couple. First off, in The Martian, there's a very clever joke about Aquaman in the book that didn't make it into the movie, and I was really sad about that. And then second off, a battle that I actually won, which I did not expect to, because my opinion does not matter, to the filmmakers. I mean, they're curious and they would consult me, but I had no say, I had no authority. But Ridley Scott is a very visual-oriented. He came from a production design background. He loves the way things look, and he's like, wow, the Cape Canaveral, the Florida coast, all that stuff, it's beautiful. I want that outside the windows of Mission Control. And I'm like, Mission Control's in Houston. And he's like, well, maybe mission control could be in Florida. And I'm like, it's like the one thing everybody knows. It's like people don't know the details of how spaceships work, but
Florida, we have a problem.
Yeah. Tallahassee, we have a problem. Exactly. And so that was the one thing that I actually stood up for, and I did kind of win that battle. I wasn't alone. Like a lot of people, everybody's like, dude, it's Houston. Everybody knows. They call it Houston. If you have them talking to Earth and not calling it Houston, people are going to wonder what the hell.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Toronto, we have a problem.
Yes.
Toronto.
But the tax break was worth it.
Yes. Yes.
That's a film joke.
I
Yeah.
actually
Well,
have.
they didn't shoot any part of it in the U.S. It was all in Budapest and Jordan.
I'm going to answer the opposite of your question.
Good.
Maybe like 3/4 inverted. So I had something my editor cut from the book.
3/4 inverted.
Oh.
Yes. So I had
Oh,
a
no,
scene
she did
where,
that.
my editor is brilliant and everything she does is right except for this one thing. They were in book 2, they go underground and find that the U.S. government has prepared for nuclear winter in this facility called Mount Weather. And I said, and they'll have all the paintings that they evacuated from all the famous museums, and they're going to see Van Gogh's Starry Night. And she writes, like the world's coming to an end, they don't have time to evacuate the paintings. I'm like, no, I think they would. I think Starry Night would be there. And we crossed it out, and then I'm watching season 2 of The 100, and they go underground into Mount Weather, and the final shot is Starry Night.
Oh, yeah.
See? I'm glad they value art in that world.
Excellent.
Okay, let's go in the front if you want to ask a question. And if we could, authors, just maybe 1 or 2 answer each one so we can get as many as we can in. That'd be great.
So I was wondering, when you're writing books and then you get the hey, might make a movie out of your thing. Do you have an actor in mind that you were like, oh, that's totally kind of who I was seeing? You kind of talked about it, Andy, with Jane Lynch. I was wondering if anyone else has any moments like those.
I don't, because I torture my characters. So I wouldn't want to do that to a real person.
So my protagonist in the Lairdbalor is very young. He's 7, and he ages rapidly throughout the book. So I'm going to be fascinated to see exactly what young actor can do that. I'm really interested to see who they find. But as far as the adult characters, I have this unabashed crush on Eddie Redmayne. I don't care what part he plays in the book. I just
want him to be in it.
Eddie.
I think he's probably here this weekend for Fantastic Beasts. You need to find him.
Thank you. Can we have-
I just tried it really hard. No matter, the minute you even publish a book, the fans will start saying, oh, this person would be so perfect in this role. I don't do any of that because Monday often never comes when they start. And I was under option with Warner Brothers before it went to television. And I wrote these books in 2008, which was a decade ago. So anybody I possibly could have imagined for any of these roles would have aged out of the parts by now. So it's not like writing, imagining the film adaptation in advance. I am definitely not casting either. And because that's just a whole other circus of crazy in a film adaptation. So.
Cool, thank you.
Great question.
Hi, I love the Artemis.
Oh, thank you.
Artemis, I mean. So I have a practical question about before you had your success and you were just getting started, all of you, just when you had your day job, how did you find the time and the motivation to write?
For me, it was by having absolutely no social life. No friends, no girlfriend, nothing. Just nothing better to do in the evening, honestly. I had moved to Boston, and I didn't know anybody there, and I'd moved there for work for an engineering job. And so I literally had nothing to do in the evening other than watch Red Sox games and write. So that's what I did.
And sometimes you can't do it all. When I'm on deadline, and I also have a full-time day job as a book editor, I cry every day at the end of the workday before I switch to writing. And I know
Very healthy, very healthy.
sad, but it's just sort of my schedule, and people know it's Kass is crying in her office. She's probably about to switch, and you always feel overwhelmed. And you always feel like you're letting people down. I'm not going to turn this into group therapy because it's worth it. But yeah, you make sacrifices. I got up
Is there
early
a crying
my
light
brother's
that they put outside your office? When you would cry, cry was on, they knew not to go in?
No, I need them to come in.
We are very different
They're
criers.
generally leftover cookies that they bring me.
For me, it's I need to write first thing, and I tend to write longhand. because it doesn't require the ritual of where's the charger, where is the outlet, where is the satellite signal, oh my God, I don't have Wi-Fi, oh, I can't do this, oh, I just like, before I can start thinking of all that crap, I get out a notebook and a pencil and I make myself a cup of coffee and I sit. And if I write 4 pages out in longhand between, and it's weird, it's like longhand, there's like no blinking cursor, there's no screen. If I can get 4 pages down or 2 pages down or even half a page or 1 line of dialogue, then I can go to my day job and be okay, and be like, I got work done today. That's all right. And yeah, okay, maybe it's crap, but I got work done today, so that's good.
I do longhand also for first drafts.
Yeah, really. I mean, and it is amazing how it lowers the stakes, ups the playfulness for me. So if you haven't tried that and you're an aspiring writer, just try actually just sitting down. First,
Yeah, this is terrible advice. I'm saying. Sure.
I
I can't even write a grocery list without my hand hurting.
The 2 guys are like, no, awful. Kass and I are like, notebooks, bullet journals for the win.
Thank you.
Hi. So we've been talking about, how we expect our stories to be represented visually, but I was wondering if you were to think about audio or music too when your stories are adapted. So like when you're writing, do you have like songs in mind or certain styles in mind? And then when you see that adapted, is it like different from what you perceive?
I definitely do have like music in the back of my head it's funny because the music that I'm into at the time I'm writing a novel is permanently cemented for me with that novel. So for The Martian, I listened to a lot of the theme to Apollo 13 and a lot of Danny Elfman stuff as well. So I've got this weird eclectic mix. But yeah, I definitely have music in mind. Also, disco was a big part of The Martian.
Yeah.
So.
I don't. I have ADD, and one of the ways it plays out for me is if I have any kind of music playing in the background, that's what my brain is doing. It's doing the rhythm. I can't write. I can't think. Literally cannot write a sentence if there's music playing. However, when your first novel is called Brown Girl in the Ring, which is the name of a very popular Caribbean ring game, it has a tune. I had that thing in my head for 2 years, so depends.
Yeah.
I wrote mine to the background of classical piano music because I have been in a busy house and a busy life, and in order to write, I kind of had to block everything out. And so I would put on music, and I binge listen to specifically Daniel Pollock, who's this brilliant pianist. He's a wonderful person too. I'm talking being pianist, but he's. I binge listened to everything that he had, and so it's very hard for me to separate this book from that because it was such an intrinsic part of like the creation process. And when I'd get stuck in the writing process, I would kind of sit back and listen, and then just kind of let that sort of guide me. So, yeah, it's very much wound into that for me.
I actually have a horror story about that. Kirsten White, an author who's here this weekend, told me that when she writes a book, she listens to one song on repeat the whole book. And then she could never listen to that song ever again. But that's how she writes a book, and I just stared at her in literal horror at what she had just told me. Gosh. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Hi. I just.
Hello.
It's okay. We need to hear you.
Hey. I just wanted to ask, what's the hardest part of the writing process and like I know it varies for everybody, but like specifically for you, like for you up there, what's the hardest part of the actual writing process aside from actually writing?
For me, it's exposition. I love dialogue, but finding a way to tell the reader everything they need to know and not read like a Wikipedia article, that's the really difficult thing for me.
I think it's hard to just remind yourself not to compare a first draft to a published book, because your first draft is always going to fall so far short of what you want for it. I once heard that the hardest thing in the world is to be creative, to have the impulse to create, and also to have good taste, because you want to create and you hate everything you produce. So I think that's the hardest part for me, is to remember no one will see this. That's actually why I like to write in longhand. It reminds me that this is just for me.
Yeah, I don't even call it my first draft. I call it a draft 0, just so you don't feel any attachment to it at all, because you know it's going to be terrible. Everybody's book up here that was written, the first draft of it was awful. Because every book ever written, the first draft of it was awful. So that's you got to get used to that part.
There's a Hemingway quote: "The first draft of anything is shit."
Yeah.
That's a quote.
I think
that was Hemingway, actually.
That was Hemingway.
I think for me the hardest thing is about the moments when you yourself lose confidence in what you're writing.
Yeah.
And there's honestly, it happens to all of us. I would be told, if any of you are writers in the room and are thinking you're going to get to that place where you're totally like smooth sailing, I have to tell you, I don't know about. I'm looking at the women who's written the most books on the panel. No, it's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen. You're always, and I think we need to have those doubts, and we need to get through them. And I think that's what makes a writer. Is the writer are the people who can push through those self-doubts and keep putting words on the page, keep being creative, keep playing. Because if you're not having fun, the reader's not going to have fun.
And I know we're trying to go fast, but I'll just add one bit of advice that I came up with a while ago, because people often ask me about writing. And one thing is, like, people often think when they're first starting out, writing is going to be kind of like music. It's a creative endeavor, like I'm going to create some music. Well, you need to remember, musicians enjoy the process of playing music. Writers don't enjoy the process of making books. Writing isn't like music. It's like gardening. It's like you do a lot of back-breaking labor so that you can have beauty in the end. But the process of getting to that beauty is very, very difficult. And if you convince yourself that it's like, oh, it's going to be fun the whole way, then you're going to be really disappointed. So if it's really hard work, that just means you're doing it right.
And we're going to have time for one more question only before the lightning round. So I apologize to those of you that lined up that didn't get to ask one, but we've got one more.
Are you guys actually kneeling back there?
Well, because
we're kneeling.
It's easier for them to sit down.
Yeah, actually, it's a relief. Please sit.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
They've also been walking the con floor all day, and so it's nice to.
Yeah. Felt overly reverent.
I feel like I just won something.
They're supplicants, really. Yeah.
First, I apologize. I think my question is mostly for Ms. Hopkinson. Perhaps the others may have some experience as well.
By all means.
We're talking about adaptations, and Ms. Hopkinson, you're working on Neil Gaiman on his Sandman series, so you are in a unique position, as far as I know here, that you are working on adapting somebody else's ideas to a different medium, and I was just wondering how, in terms of writing, that is different than from working with just your own imagination to having to adapt someone else's imagination to another medium.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm using like 90% my own imagination, because what Neil said to us when the four of us met was, so I created this sandbox. These are the characters I don't want you to use because I have plans for them, but for the rest, go play. So you'll see media saying that Neil wrote the plot. He did not. He gave us background about what's happening in the dreaming at this point, and then off we go. On the other hand, I've never actually seen my characters made into real people before, like visual people. So when Domo Stanton, who is doing the pages, started sending me back sketches, it was a magical moment. It was like, oh my God, we made persons. I had these little squiggles on paper, and we made people. So that part's lovely. So yeah, it's a very different process than what I thought it would be starting out.
All right, thank you very much for the questions. Now, panel members, we're going to do a quick lightning round. Does everyone know how a lightning round works? It's very simple. I'm going to throw out either or. You're going to pick one or the other in lightning fashion in order down the row, and then I will judge your choices. So it's just very quick. That's why it's called lightning. So, okay, Thor's hammer or a Wookiee Patronus?
Thor's hammer.
Wookiee Patronus.
Obviously, Wookiee Patronus.
Thor's hammer all the way.
Wookiee Patronus. I can't use Thor's hammer.
The correct answer was Thor's hammer. So, would you want a robot servant or a talking pet?
Go this way, or are we bouncing?
We're just going to keep going in order.
Okay, so.
No servants, bad history with slavery. Talking pets, a little bit better.
Yeah, talking pet.
Robot servant with some moral concerns.
What she said.
Talking pet.
I don't think a pet would say anything interesting. Prehistoric Earth or the year 3010?
Pass. I can't choose. I want both.
Just think about toilets.
Okay, fine. All right, 3010.
Yeah.
3010, scared of dinosaurs.
It depends on who's controlling the house at that point. So I'm going to say 3010.
Historic Earth, obviously.
3010. I'm all about thinking the future is better than the past.
Admiral of Starfleet or Headmaster at Hogwarts?
Oh, damn. Headmaster at Hogwarts. Sheesh.
Oh, Admiral of Starfleet, yeah.
Hogwarts.
Yes, headmistress of Hogwarts.
Starfleet all the way, sci-fi.
Starfleet again is the thing about the bathrooms. Snickers or Kit Kat?
Kit Kat. They taste better in Canada.
Kit Kat.
Snickers. I hate sharing.
Snickers, but I would share mine with Cass if she wanted.
Snickers, and I would not share mine with Cass.
You put that bad boy in the
I write
freezer?
books about teens competing for valuable resources.
All right, now think very carefully about this one. Goonies or Stranger Things?
So I can't watch horror. Have not seen either one of them.
Wow.
Oh, Stranger Things all the way. Yeah.
Goonies.
Goonies.
I'm a child of the 80s. Got to go with Goonies.
That's right. Goonies never say die. All right. Would you want a ghost in your home or zombies surrounding your house?
Oh, see, you keep making me make choices. Zombies, because then I'd get to practice with the sword.
Oh, I'm going Ghost. Ghost all the way.
Ghost, ideally a sexy one from the past.
Ghost.
Zombies.
I feel like you can deal with the zombies.
Yeah, dealing with zombies would be a lot better, easier.
All right, karaoke night or Jenga party?
Karaoke night, and I have stories.
Jenga party, you don't want to hear me sing.
Yeah. Karaoke.
Karaoke.
I mean, I don't like either of those things. So I guess I'll go with karaoke.
That's right, you can sing away your problems. All right, what is your least favorite word? I'll go first while they're thinking. Mine is pamphlet. It's gross. It doesn't feel good to say. There's plenty of good substitutes for the word. It's never need to be used.
I hate it so much it's gone clean out of my head.
Fair enough.
Moist.
Yummy.
Smirked.
But just the past tense?
Smirked.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
Back to the front.
Webinar. What the hell is that? What is that?
That's the best answer I've ever gotten for that. All right, Andy, if you come up with one, you can pop in anytime. You get to choose one of these. You never have to brush your teeth again, or you never have to wash your hair again. They'll be fine either way. You'll be fine. You won't have to do it.
Teeth.
Oh, I'm just going to shave my head, never wash the hair.
I get good ideas in the shower, so teeth.
Totally teeth.
Teeth.
Answer's teeth. Yeah. All right, we got a couple more. No, you either have no depth perception or a very tiny mouth.
No depth perception. I have none now when I take these off. I can't see any.
I gotta go with no depth perception. I like food. That would be difficult.
But then you can't drive, so tiny mouth and my freedom.
That is exactly, that's spooky. That's totally where I went. I can't drive.
You can drive.
Tiny mouth.
I know. I have friends who are missing an eye. They're allowed to drive. You can drive. I'm also going with no depth perception.
I like smoothies, so small mouth is fine. Last thing, and it has to be very, very quick, so just shout one out. Name one book you are reading now or you would recommend to the audience.
Actually, I was reading Nemesis. That's not
Good. That is the correct answer.
Yeah. It's the truth. Do I get a point?
Anyone else fire him out?
Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. It's amazing.
The Calculating Stars, Mary Kowal.
Anyone?
I'm rereading The House of Mirth. It's still good this time, in case anyone was worried.
Okay, we're getting chased out of here. Thank you, everyone, and give a big round of applause to our panel.